Let's wait for the delay. Good evening, everybody. Can everybody hear us? It's Dom here from Boots on the Table with Gamer Dom, and I'm all alone. Well, I'm not alone because Martin's keeping me company. Martin from Seventh Son over there. And Steve's just joined. There we go. Steve. Just dropped in just at the right moment from On Point HQ. And you'll notice we're missing the mighty dwarf. He's not here. He's missing in action. He's off on holiday. So he's left us all alone to play around and mess things up, destroy the whole reputation of his channel, which is good, really. Can you hear us, Steve? Oh, he's looking pensive. It's that broody look he does when he comes on. Oh, I don't know. But if anyone could tell us whether they can see us and whether you can hear us all right in the chat, that would be fantastic. Oh, Steve, is definitely something going weird here. Never mind. Peter says he can hear us, so that's good. So we've got Peter Little awesome. In the chat. We've got Coloured and Painting. Hiya, mate. We've got Leslie, Duncan. So a few people. That's good. Excellent. Welcome. Well, Steve's trying to connect because he seems to be suffering a bit there. I think he's frozen entirely now. Never mind. Good stuff. So, Martin, what have you been up to this week? You had a good week?
Yeah, I finished all the natives from the Muskets and Tomahawks starter, which were really good fun to paint. Nice. So I backed the Nick starter.
Thing from North Star.
So yeah, so I got all of those. So I finished all the natives plus the bonus ones that came. I finished off my Arthurian stuff I was working on.
Yep.
Which was nice because I've been working on that off and on for about a year.
They look really good, mate.
They are. They're even better when you don't have to paint any more of them. It's it makes life a lot better. But yeah, so I've just finished these native. These models are awesome. The North Star ones, they're really cool. And now I'm now just painting up some civilians for Muskets and Tomahawks because I know in the scenarios you need a bunch of them. So I just ordered a pack on Perry of just American War of Independence civilians. So I'll have them running around.
Oh, nice! Hopefully. That's what I need to. I need to order some myself. That's exactly what I need. Well done. Are they any good from Perry? Oh, you haven't got them
yet? Yeah. No, I've got them. I've got them now. You get 8 in the pack, and you only need. I think it's 10 for a scenario. So plus on North Star, I think I've seen like a couple of priests and that. So yeah, you pretty much got everything. You get a couple of kids, sort of a mare, and then just loads of sort of civilians just doing various things like sweeping or just carrying stuff about. It's quite cool. And it just adds something to the table anyway. So even if the scenario doesn't need it, I like having them on there.
Yeah.
So something a bit different.
Nice. I must admit, I do need to get some of those. I played my first game of Muskets and Tomahawks last week. No, week before.
Yeah. Yes, I did. I know. I watched it because it was the first run through the new rules I'd actually seen. So I was watching it. But to be fair, I hadn't played the first edition. So.
Right.
I was quite keen to see how it worked.
It was good fun. I have to
say. How did you find it? Did you enjoy it?
Yeah, I did. I think we missed a few of the nuances of it because we hadn't played it and we were sort of playing it a bit like a sharp game, and I don't think we kind of the part of the beauty of the game is of Muskets and Tomahawks is that sort of spotting. And the characters and all that sort of stuff that goes on, and we just didn't do that because we just wanted to get going with it and try out the new cards and the activations and all that kind of stuff. So it was nice to give that a shot. But we're planning to have, if the weather's good, which it looks at the moment, planning to have a game tomorrow night, and we're going to bring in. My mate Alec, who is actually he's been doing some really good tutorial videos of Muskets and Tomahawks, and it literally going, stage by stage and what happens and how things should work and everything. And it's and so he knows the rules, so that's good. So Jonathan and I are going to take him on. Hopefully he can put us straight on some things because there were some bits I just didn't get, like the volley. The volleying seemed really powerful, but I couldn't quite work out when you were allowed to volley and that sort of thing, which was...
Oh, yeah, it has like a template with it. Well, not a template, but it's like an alley of fire, isn't it?
Yeah,
You hit everything within that alley of fire and they have to test morale. And
It seems to. It's from what I could gather. It
Watched it.
seemed like almost like an automatic. You hit automatically, and so you just then working out the effect of the hit rather than anything else. So,
I think it. Yeah, from when you were playing, it's more of a morale
mm,
deduction thing rather than a rather than like killing loads of troops. It's more about pinning people down or getting them to run entirely.
um, I will have to. Oh, Peter's just asking what the channel's called. I can't remember. She's really not. I'll put it in the chat later on when I can think of it. Because he's done a really good series of videos. And he hasn't got many viewers. He's only got 20 odd viewers. He does post them up on the Muskets and Tomahawks Facebook page. People look, but I think there's so many things get pasted on those pages. People just don't always see them. But so I'm looking forward to that. We're going to play that again round at Jonathan's in his garden, socially distancing, of course.
Yeah,
But it works quite well as a game like that because you're drawing those cards. So he could draw the cards, and he just showed them to me. Lifted them up so he couldn't see them and I could see them, and I just went into my pack, pulled out the
yeah.
relevant cards, so we didn't have to handle them and all that kind of stuff, which worked really nicely. But
It,
yeah,
it lent itself well. I like the activation system in that game. I like it that you could end up activating
the
the enemy
opposition.
basically. I think
Yeah,
that's quite.
yeah.
I could see myself getting quite irritated with that. So, but looks a laugh. We went round my friends on Wednesday and had a socially saga game with one of my other friends, two of my
Mhm.
other friends, sorry, who were there. So we are all around this huge table he put out, and they hadn't really played that many games of it, but it was Welsh versus Irish. So it was just lots of moving and javelins instead
Right.
of shield walls and sort of grind, which is what I normally find it is, because I've got an Anglo Dane army for it,
Yeah.
and the whole thing about that army is grinding them down slowly. And then the main guy I play, he has Vikings, so
Right.
that's all about just getting in there and chopping people
Just getting
to
in and
pieces.
killing.
So it
Yeah.
was quite different, yeah, seeing people actually sort of worry about moving and sort of try to be tactical, and where you can hurl some javelins.
It's I like Saga, but it does give me a headache. It's so difficult. You have to do so much thinking. I'm not good on games where
With the
you
board
think.
and that.
Yeah, yeah, and
Uh,
knowing what the enemy can do as well, and learning the opposition's capabilities, because you think you got them banged to rights, and then they do some kind of amazing thing that you just hadn't reckoned for. But if you knew their board well, you could sort of at least plan the
yeah,
possibility of it. So
I think because the Irish, it was the first time we've seen the Irish be used, and they're all about either moving terrain or getting bonuses as soon as they're in terrain.
yeah.
Which which again is not something I'm looking forward to playing as an Anglo Dane player who likes forming in a line with shields and just and just waiting.
Funny enough, I did actually last Thursday played on Discord with another club mate of mine doing Saga, and we did play. He played Normans and I played Vikings. Um, Again, I'll put the link up if I think about it because he recorded the. I didn't record the game. He did and he
Mm.
edited it and put it up, and it was quite fun. I mean I'm no expert at Saga, and I'd forgotten an awful lot of the rules, and but it was great to have a game at it, even playing remotely. It's difficult as well from a distance, isn't it? When you're looking down a Discord
Yeah,
screen and saying, well, is that and he was measuring everything, and I was saying, is that close? How many M's is that of that unit, and all that kind of stuff. But it's slightly odd to look at it from a distance like that. But it was fun.
yeah, it's a great game. I've been playing it since the first edition
Uh
came
huh.
out. Where it
Oh
was
really?
yeah. We played it for ages. Just when they came out with that first kind of fairly skinny rule book with just I think it was Normans, Saxons, Anglo Danes, and Vikings. I think
Yeah.
were the first ones, and that was it. So we've been playing it since then because it's always another one that you can just crack out in an evening and don't necessarily need loads and loads of prep for,
Yeah.
which is something that's quite cool.
Yeah.
Especially if you can't think of anything you want to play or you haven't got time to make a list, because the point of the army building system in it's really straightforward.
Yeah.
Um, Although I've got the Age of Magic expansion, and that started to confuse me a little bit when I was going through that.
I
So
quite liked that. I
uh,
mean, we played it when that first came out. That was around Salute last year, wasn't it? It came out, and we played a few
yeah,
games down the club, and I really enjoyed it because it just sort of. I like the fact you could create pretty much any empire you wanted. I know you had the guidelines. What is it, 6 races or something you had to choose from, but within that, there were so many opportunities to, I did a Greek mythology type army based on hoplites, and that allowed me to have a Pegasus and Minotaurs and that sort of thing, because you could build them into the and it just it's just nice. I mean, it's the first fantasy I've
You
done.
can pretty much do anything you want, can't you? I bought some models from that. Are they Spanish or French? Raging Heroes. Because I thought, I'll do a sort of just a different kind of an army. Because they had these tiny little minion kind of things, and I thought, these look quite interesting. And I thought, they look pretty small, so I thought they'll be kind of Hobbit size, but they're tiny. I'll see if I can dig one out. They're about 15 mil. They are tiny, and I've just put them in a box back there, thinking, no, that's for another day now.
Well, if you could do something,
but the cool thing with muskets,
Horde or something, couldn't you? Because there's hordes, I think, in that Age of Magic, you could do it with that.
I've got an old Warhammer Dark Elf army somewhere, which I can just dig out and use for it. So I think that would be cool. Because going back to muskets and tomahawks, they're going to do source book, because the one that we got that covers American War of Independence, 1812, and the French Indian War. But they're going to do ones for like American Civil War and Napoleonic. And you see that's quite cool, because I think we said before, could quite like to do the Anglo-Israeli War, but I don't want to collect 300, 500 more minis. So that would be quite a nice alternative.
Yeah, I think it will be interesting, and I think when somebody at the club first introduced me to muskets and tomahawks, I thought, do I really want another rule system? You've got all these different sorts of, like we played a lot of Sharp Practice, and I thought, well, it sounds very much like Sharp Practice, but it's not. It's a very different game, and it's fun because of the activation system in this version, and also the I love the spotting mechanics on it, and I like the character.
Seen that in anything else?
No, it's really nobody seems to use
you have line of sight, or you don't.
Yeah, and it's clever. I like that, and I like clever rules that don't need too many headaches. Don't give you too many headaches to do.
Yeah.
Hey, you can see Steve moving.
Hey.
Can you hear us, Steve?
Hey.
Hello?
Oh, we got the usual delay. That'll warm it. He's got to get the bits of cabling warmed up, and then it suddenly all syncs together, and we can actually hear what he says.
There you go.
There he is. He is.
Is anything coming through?
Yeah. We can hear you. We can hear you, Auntie Mabel.
I think it's Discord. I keep getting this bloody stupid error.
Oh, bloody hell.
Yeah, but definitely making some kind of sound.
Yeah, we can hear you. You're a little bit out of sync, but not too bad. Not too bad at all.
No, I can live with that.
Yeah. Well, let me say hello to a few more folks.
I don't think it was me. I think.
Go on.
I think it was Discord. Sorry.
Blame Discord. I think Duncan says put 5p in the meter. You're quite right. Yeah, I think it's Ken's fault, really. I think it's Ken's fault. It's all fallen apart since he went away. So hi, Nick. Nick Games is in the house. Evening. I think I've said hello to everybody else I can see in the chat. If you're there, say hello. Any comments, please? Please make some comments, because it's just the three of us tonight. We've been let loose. Without Ken. The evil dwarf lord has departed on his summer holidays for a week. Although he's not entirely sure where he is. He kept saying it was going to be Cornwall, and then he said it's Dorset, and then he was saying it's Devon. I think it's all a conspiracy to throw us off, so we don't know. Don't follow him.
Track him down.
Exactly. Mind you, frankly, you don't want to go too close to him. I think that's the best thing. So, although he did post something up the other day with some painting underway on his table, which made me laugh. So, I thought he's obviously not run away from all the gaming, and his poor girlfriend is going to be subjected to him sitting there painting on his table. I'm surprised he hasn't joined yet. I wouldn't be surprised. Oh, we got Middle Earth Shadow. Hello, mate. Welcome aboard. So Steve, what you been working on, mate, this week?
Infamy.
I wonder why.
Painting stripy trousers. It's as fun. It's as fun as it sounds.
I love it. I love it. I laughed a lot when I saw your post about that. That really made me laugh. Saying it was Paul's fault, wasn't mine at all. It's all Paul's fault.
Oh no, it's well. I blame everybody. I pretty much blame everyone. I, like I said at the start of that video, complete lack of willpower. I tried to put it off, but my angle was I can use this for 2 different games. That's where I'm going with it.
Yes, cunning. Yeah, I genuinely think Infamy as a rule set. I don't want to make this into a complete Infamy love fest, because I'm sure there's some people who aren't interested in it at all. But it does seem to have generated a huge amount of interest. The amount of stories online about it, videos coming out, people just everybody I seem to connect with in some form or another is either reading the rules or painting an army or doing something. And it's fascinating how it's just taken off. Just shows how popular I think ancient rule sets are.
Well, this is my first dabble into ancients at this scale, anyway.
Yeah.
With those ones I worked on last week, I really enjoyed painting them. Something a bit different. But no, they were a lot of fun to work on.
I was really surprised you didn't go German, mate. I thought there's the man that does everything German, Second World War at least, and you missed an opportunity to do the ancient Germans.
Did Britons or Germans? But I thought my own ancestry is predominantly Celt and Gallic, so I thought I'd go down the whole British Celtic route for a change, do a bit of keep it in the family type thing.
You can find some room for some German field grey in there somewhere on something. Just
yes, I'm pretty sure. Although saying that, I did just before I came on. Before I've actually started priming that the other week, so I'm going to start painting some Germans again this week, just to keep it real.
You're getting a bit of withdrawal symptoms where the umbilical cord snap back, and it's got to do some Germans. Fair enough.
I was doing last week. I was painting though that SS camouflage as a bit of a change.
Saw that. Interesting. I think they came out really nicely.
I was quite happy with how that turned out. Normally painting any kind of camouflage sends me a bit funny. But no, I really enjoyed those two. They were a lot of fun to work on.
Yeah, I think they came out well. I think you said it well in your video. You were talking about how people get a bit funny about it, but it's at that sort of scale. It's really difficult, to see really where the nuances are and where it should be. As long as it looks good en masse. I think my bit was always making it bright enough, but not too bright. So it stood out a bit, but not so much that you go, "Oh, blimey, that's a bit garish."
I wanted to look like 1970s, like curtains. So I did a little bit of brightness, but only in small clusters. So hopefully that worked. The autumn one, that I thought I'd ruined that at one point. That did look like 70s carpet and curtains.
Yeah.
But I think once I had the inks and the bright kind of dotty parts of it, it didn't look too bad.
Nice. No, I think they did look really good. I did some, and I think someone actually commented on one of my videos, said, "Oh, it looks a bit dark," and I thought afterwards, yeah, you're probably right, it does, but I'm not going to change it. It's done now. But yeah, I think it's hard to do though. It's really hard. Camo is just a nightmare to make it look decent without being stupid. What do we got here? So we got Ralph. Hiya, Ralph. Good evening, mate. He says, "Hi, hi guys. I'm listening. I'm wondering if you've heard of a channel called That Tassie Wargamer." He put up a Muskets and Tomahawks battle report. Not into myself, but worth watching if you are. I saw him the other day, actually, the first time. I don't think he's got many subs. It's well worth hopping over and having a look at him. He does some quite interesting stuff. Yeah, a good recommendation, Ralph. Very nice. And Nick Games says, "Is Infamy good? Ancient miniatures are new to him." I've read the rules. I can't say, and the battle reports that they've put up, that Rich from Two Fat Lardies has put up, it does look really good. It does look really fun. I'm looking forward to it. I'm hoping I might get my first game next week. That's the hope. If the weather forecast is as good as it appears to be, we might be able to do a bit of social gaming outside. Social distancing, and play a bit of Infamy. That's the plan. Tomorrow night I'm doing Muskets and Tomahawks version 2 with Alec. So Alec can put us all right, which is great, because I'm sure Jonathan and I got things badly wrong last time. And Lee's here. Hiya, Lee. Welcome aboard, mate. Welcome. So,
Lee.
Yeah, so I think it's I've been fully into the Infamy stuff, as you've probably seen. Cracking through my Germans and really enjoying doing them. They're great fun to do.
Are they all Victrix? Both of your sets? They're all Victrix stuff?
The lion's share of mine are.
Mine are Warlord.
Yeah, I think there are. I mean, the beauty of that period is there are a lot of really good manufacturers. You're not stuck for decent figures out there, to be honest. But I found that Victrix box of bag of Germans gives you 60 figures for 30 odd.
Well, yeah, it's like the Carthaginians I've got sitting there waiting. You get a lot.
So remind us, Martin, how you got those?
I was tricked by alcohol and informative television. But the second expansion for Infamy is going to be Punic Wars, isn't it? Or is that right? They're going to do the Carthaginians, the Punic Wars, and that next. So if I hold out, I can maybe hold out on painting those for a while.
Yeah, I think you've got a little while, so you should be good for that, because Rich was talking about it on Facebook the other night, and he was saying in one of the posts, I think he said he was having a couple of days off, which I thought was a bit extreme. God damn, get on with it. We need the rules. And then he was going to start on the new expansion. So I assume he's got quite a lot of it pre-organised, but yeah, he said he was going to start on it fairly soon. So that'll be interesting, because it talked about
a couple of weeks back. With Rich, a couple of weeks back, he put on Twitter, he was asking for recommendations for Punic War fiction to read when he was on holiday.
Cool.
Oh, nice. He has some good books for that. Oh my God, Ken's in the house. Ken, the evil dwarf, is here. Oh, evening, mate. Where are you? Did you work out where you were supposed to be going to? That was the question we were all asking. Because you told me Cornwall, then you said Devon, then you said Dorset, and then you went back to Devon again. So I assume you're just doing one of those, not in Scotland or something. Oh no, you can't go to Scotland, can you? It's cut off. Anyway, yeah, so I just saw him pop up in the chat. Oh, bloody hell. There goes the evening. Yeah, I think it's going to be really interesting. I have to say, I'm more excited about the second version of the book. The Punic one should be really good. He did. I think what I heard him say was it's going, or one of their, maybe it's the Oddcast. They do this podcast thing, and I was listening to that. I didn't listen to all of it, but I think he said they were doing the mandatory gladiators, because everyone seems to get obsessed with the gladiators. Roman Civil War. Carthage, Numidians, I think there was some kind of Alexandrian successors, from what I remember. I can't remember.
Cool.
Some people in the chat might remember what the other countries, what the other nations were. But I think it's a really. I've always been fascinated by the Alexandrian successor states. I think it's just this awesome period. So I'm hoping it extends a little bit into that. So at least I can get me pikeman out again, because he's in Devon. You sure, mate? You're absolutely sure? So yeah, so that's been what I've been working on this week, is obviously all through those, and it's been nice to do historicals again instead of those stupid orcs, which have been great fun to do.
The screen skin.
Yeah, it's just, it's just, oh my god, more orcs. Although I did finish off some trolls the other day, and I actually was really pleased. They were some of the nicest painting I think I've done, which is a bit scary, really. The effect of Ken is obviously rubbing off on me. So yeah, what are you working on tonight then, gents? I can see. Is that your? Is that the villagers
Tonight,
you're working on? Oh, sorry, Steve. Carry on.
Working on five more of these British warriors.
So we'll give you the first mob, will it? Once you finish them.
That'll be the first 10 completed. Yeah, I despise painting flesh, and I think I've chosen completely the wrong nation. But these guys are half naked, so yeah, I could have chosen a bit better. And I've even started tackling their war tattoos, which has been interesting.
Yeah, I've been trying to do some tattoos for my my Germans, and I was trying to do some research into what sort of tattoos they had, but I couldn't find anything that was really definitive. Every time you put tattoos into the interweb and Germans and Gothics and I don't know, Celtics and everything else, you get all this modern stuff come up, which is not really what I wanted. So I found it really hard. So in the end, I just sort of made up some stuff with sort of, you know, moons and stars and things like that, really, because I couldn't think of anything else to do. We should ask the archaeologist in the house. Any idea what?
Don't ask me. I mean, a lot of it's just very. The thing is, a lot of it's very subjective and comes from the writings of the of like Caesar and like Tacitus and things like that, and they go into all these like quite elaborate descriptions, and because they're the descriptions that we have to assume that they were telling the truth.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, to be fair, I think that any kind of like designs look cool. I've just finished it like I did the natives, muskets and tomahawks. So I sat there trying to look at Huron because I've got the French. I know you won't like that, but I've got the Huron. I thought I'd paint them up as the Huron. So I was sitting there looking up Huron war paint, and then in the end, I just ended up just pretty much doing whatever I wanted because I figured that if they're 3 foot away, war paint's war paint. So
yeah, I had the same when I did my Hurons.
And...
I did exactly the same thing. I looked it up and I thought they have quite a lot of red, don't they? Which I thought was quite good.
Yeah.
At least it stands out. But they seem to have a lot of half faces painted in red.
Yeah, that's what I've done.
Just did that really.
Stripes around the eyes and things like that. So I just kind of every three models has got the same pattern, just sort of change. I've got one who's to be fair, I just put on Last of the Mohicans and just paused it. And...
That's as good as any, if you ask me. As good as any. Yeah, I like you. I looked at them. I thought, well, so I did some of my Germans, and I thought, oh well, that'll do, because when you get to sort of, as you say, from table distance, it's like you can't really see. You just get that impression of a bluey kind of colour, which is good enough, really. So that's what I'm saying. That's what I'm doing. Oh dear. So Culloden says, if you hate painting skin, just paint them blue. Woad overload. Yeah, there you go. That's what you need to do, Steve. Just paint them.
I was thinking of doing it more than half and half, sort of half blue, half flesh.
Good plan. And what you're working on your villagers, are you, Martin?
Yeah, on these 18th century villagers. So I've just kind of got like this little mayor guy here waving his hat to hopefully just sort of fend people off. And then I've got this tiny child to paint, which I'm not entirely sure how I'm gonna tackle yet. But yeah, so they're just there for muskets and tomahawks. Again, it's a bit different. There's a woman in a big blue frilly dress that I'm now trying to paint. So the contrast paints are working really well for that because there's loads of like folds and stuff in it. So I'm not gonna have to do very much to that, hopefully.
I'm gonna have to check those ones out because I definitely wanted to get some villagers for.
Yeah, I'll bung you the link because they've got you get 8 in the pack, and they've got some other ones as well. So I might just pick up another one, and I'll have about 16. So be able to sort of fill out for any
still ordering.
game.
Are they still doing their orders and everything okay over there?
Yeah, they are. Yeah, they were doing it. They reopened, I think, at the start of June for the stuff. So and to be fair, I mean, I ordered it, and they came, pretty quick. So yeah, they're all going okay, thankfully.
Okay, I'm gonna have a go then. I have to go and get some because I definitely that you could really do with them for muskets and tomahawks. They're some of the scenarios require it really.
I find they're quite useful for most for periods if you can get just a few civilians to use as objectives or whatever, and you can chuck them on because I was planning on using some of the Gangs of Rome things for when you guys have been chatting about infamy and stuff like that, and there's I've got some Gangs of Rome sort of just guys in togas I thought would make quite good objectives if you were fighting over somebody or I don't know, trying to trash a villa or something.
Yeah, I think exactly, that would be quite good actually. That reminds me, I think it's a Kenneth Williams figure somewhere that I think Warlords did as a freebie. I must do him. I must do him because he'd be really good, as you say, for sort of a scenario where you've got to capture a Roman senator or something. That'd be kind of fun to have.
Yeah.
Oh, matron somewhere in there. So who else we got here? So, Ken's outraged that we're not doing orcs. Well, go on your holidays, mate. Apparently my audio is slightly quiet. I don't know. Everyone else think that? Oh, it's because you lot are too loud, apparently. There we go. I'm going to do everyone's eyes in. Sorry, I'm just going to fiddle with the settings for a minute. Bear with. I've forgotten how to do that. It's all. So yeah, I'm working on buildings is what I'm doing. Ruins and things at the moment is what I'm doing. Oh, sugar, I can't find it. Never mind. So that's what I'm working on. Lots of ruins because I realised because now we're starting to do a bit of social garden gaming. I realised all the terrain I used to use all the time, has been stored in my garage of shame and is a bit knackered and sometimes mouse eaten, if I'm honest. It's also largely 20mm, which is not much use for 28mm games because most of the games I play are around the club and they have a terrain cupboard. So I haven't had to get any terrain for ages. So I suddenly thought, oh shit, I probably ought to get a bit of terrain. Because last week when we played Muskets and Tomahawks, I said to Jonathan, "Oh, do you want me to bring some terrain over?" And he said, "Oh yeah, if you can bring some woods and some fences." And I went, "Fences? I don't think I've got any fences." so quick Amazon purchase of some cheap railway fences. These are actually quite good. These were whose were they? Kitmaster. They're actually 00 scale, but you get a load of them for about £3. And once you've stuck them down on a bit of something, painted them, they're absolutely fine. Pretty good scale, so got a load of those. So that was all good. So yeah, that's what I've been doing. That's what I'm working on, is buildings, ruins at the moment, to be precise.
Speaking of terrain, I need to pick up some more some Normandy European terrain, or most of the terrain we use because we primarily fight board action games in the Pacific. We've just got jungle scenery, so I need to get off my arse and get some European stuff.
There is some really good stuff out there you can pick up, and it's actually pretty reasonable price now. I was surprised how good some of the stuff is you can get, either painted or unpainted, depending on your whim. I did pick some stuff up from that.
Well, I've got
Was it Last Valley or something? Who always does all the trade shows? You know, when you go to trade shows.
Yeah, I've got some stuff off him. Yeah.
He's doing another 20% sale at the moment and free postage, and he's pretty good. Send some. I got some hedgerows from him, and they're really, really good. Although they do need a good spray when you get them, because the flock comes off in tons, so don't open them in your front room. The other half gets a bit annoyed when your carpet gets covered in bits of flock. Just a bit of a safety tip there for you. But yeah, it's all good. So what else is... oh, blimey, Ken, just shut up. He's just talking all the time in the chat. It's terrible. I'm joking, mate. Modelling for Advantage. Hi, Kaiser. How you doing, mate? Evening all, he says. How's the infamous bunch? We're absolutely fantastic, I think. Well, speaking for myself, we're absolutely fantastic. He said he's waiting for the moment when all the trees have brushes in the mouth at the same time. Oh, waiting for all three have brushes in the mouth at the same time to take a photograph. Here we go. Do you want to... Let's all do it at the same time, just so Kaiser can get a picture. Yeah. There you go. Sorted. We'll do most things for our fans. There you go. Ken says, got fantasy terrain for battle systems coming for review. We'll take a look at for our first game, Dom. You're on the scrounge again. For God's sake, he's on the scrounge. He's always on the scrounge, that boy. Jesus Christ. And Ralph says, for French Indian War civilians, tried Krantara. Oh, that's a good shout, Ralph. I've got some of their Indians, and they're really nice. So I might look at them for civilians. Good shout, thank you. Krantara, they do really nice stuff. Slightly smaller than those stuff you've got, Martin, but they're really nice. And Ken says, MDF stuff from TT Combat from Normandy, really cheap. Yeah, I've got loads of MDF stuff, but it's a bugger to paint. That's my problem. I don't like painting MDF. It just so frustrating. So, anybody else do MDF painting? I know you're supposed to do some kind of heavy paint on them because otherwise they absorb all the moisture. Any tips on doing MDF buildings?
The only MDF buildings I've ever painted were the bits and pieces that came with the Strontium Dog starter box.
Mm-hmm.
But I used these to paint them. They were really odd acrylic. They were kind of artists acrylic paints, come in quite big pots. Now, the ones I use, I think they're about 14 years old. They still haven't dried up yet. Still using. That's probably why they didn't melt the MDF. But no, I do have to water them down a bit. But they went onto the MDF, no problem, and they weathered up really quite well. So I would recommend sort of really cheap ass acrylic paint.
I did go down to one of the cheap bookshops and buy a whole load of that craft paint and try that, but it just I lost the will to live. Sorry, Martin, I cut you off.
No, that's all right. No, I just say I go to like Wilco's and places like that and get the £1 tester pots of emulsion and stuff like that, and you just whack those on. They seem to work really well, because if you get like the white ones, if you put them on quite thick, especially on Roman stuff like this, just these kind of things, and then put those straight onto MDF, and it looks like render, and then you can scratch it off in places as well, and then you can put a wash over it, and you get all these little lumps and bumps in it that looks like where grime's collected and stuff like that. So nice. That's what I used to do. But when I think the only MDF thing I've really painted, actually, come to think of it, is my La Sant model, which then it was mostly render, so I just slapped loads of white on it, because everything else, my Dead Man's Hand stuff, that's all foreground, so that's pre-coloured, and it looks like wood anyway, so I didn't have to do much. My friend who I do gaming with, he goes all out. He started modelling more bricks on them, and he even went to the effort of finding 1940s pictures of wallpaper, rescaling them in our in the software we've got at work, and printing it off and wallpapering the inside.
Brilliant. Brilliant. Got to admire his dedication, I reckon. That's brilliant. I've seen people do some fabulous stuff. There's that guy. Oh God, what's his name? Is it JVC Paints? He's out in, I think he's in Japan or somewhere like that, and he does the most awesome buildings. And he did I think it was called, I think he called it Berlin House or something like that. And he'd done exactly that. He'd even gone down to getting like doll's house bits to go inside the building.
Yeah.
And he had
Awesome.
pictures on the walls and carpets, and it's just like, and he'd even put lighting in it, right? So it even had lights. It was just like, oh my God,
That's dedication, man.
just awesome to see, absolutely awesome. But no, I did the old thing of scouring through eBay and thinking, oh blimey, all that MDF Stalingrad buildings, and I bought about 2 loads of these ruins of buildings. I thought they'd be fantastic for Stalingrad, and of course they're all MDF, and now I've got to paint them, and it's like, oh Jesus. So they're just sort of still sitting in the garage of shame while I think about what to do with them. But yeah, I do like the pre-painted ones. They're good. Leslie says, don't use paint, use grey primer, and then use felt pens and watercolour pens. I have been using the Halford's grey primer, and that does seem to work, because anything else, it's like a sponge. It sucks it all in. And Lee says, use hairspray first to seal it, and then paint as normal. Okay. He got that tip from a well-known MDF company. Okay. Well, I don't need much hairspray on my hair, thanks to my isolation haircut. It's all fine. I shall have a go. Oh, Ken's trying to tell me what to do from on holiday. Good. Thank you very much. I shall go and have a go with that in a minute. Thanks, mate. Chinchilla sand gluing chinchilla sand to the MDF is very fine. It seals the MDF, but gives it a little bit of texture. Yeah, I did that on a small house, and it worked okay. It was just fiddly as hell, and I just didn't have the patience, really. I could have painted a half a German army in the time it took me to put a bit of chinchilla sand on one wall. Sarissa do a book on making and painting MDF, Leslie says. Okay, brilliant. Evening, GP. Nice to see you. Thanks for joining. And Ken's off. He's off to watch Netflix. All right. See you, mate. See you later. Thanks for joining. Enjoy the rest of your holiday, buddy. So, I was going to ask. So, hopefully, people caught our friend Dave from Offensive last week. What do you reckon? Did you enjoy it? Did you find anything interesting out of what he had to say? No. What do you reckon, Martin?
No, I was just thinking. I thought it was nice to see just effectively a conversation, rather than sort of a really sort of pointed interview. So the questions all were like quite natural. Plus, you were doing the questions from the people who were watching as well, which was good. No, I thought it was just nice to see someone who clearly really enjoys the hobby. But I think the main thing that I thought was good was how he was going on about releasing a good chunk of a line, like not just releasing one pack. So he'd have like a whole idea in mind, so whether that's Spanish or Fallschirmjäger or whatever, and he would actually release like a good set of them rather than just one pack, see how it goes, and then do some more. I thought that was something that was quite cool. I wish a few more companies would do that, because a couple of other companies just tend to make one pack. It doesn't sort of sell as well as they want, and they don't make any more. Whereas if they made a few more, maybe people would buy a bulk amount of them.
Yeah. No, I thought the same. I thought that was interesting how he talks about sort of philosophy of how he does things. I thought I enjoyed that a lot. I thought the other bit interested me. People were asking, and I've done the same. It's like, oh, can you do starter packs for this rule system or that rule system? And of course, you get so hung up about what you play and what you do, you forget. Of course, there's countless other people out there, and they can't do starter packs for every kind of manufacturer or every kind of rule set or everything else. That they have to have a bit of flexibility in there, because they've got to make money out of it, right? So that kind of made me go, oh yeah, I hadn't really thought about that. Yeah, of course. But it was nice to see some of the stuff he was planning or they were going to do. Some of those the ski troops and those British sniper he showed was just like, oh my goodness. I hadn't any ambition to do any British troops apart from an 8th Army plan at some point. But I think suddenly I might be doing a British Army when they come out, because that was awesome.
And it did make me think about my World War II stuff again, which I haven't looked at for quite a long time. So, it might, if he the ski troops, if he does Finnish kind of stuff or even German skis, I might have to look at that.
Finnish, absolutely. They're on my list of something I want to do moving forward, but I just don't. I like the range from Warlord, but I don't know. I really don't. But I've got so many ideas for so many different things that I want to do, mainly involving Germans. But yeah, the Finnish would definitely be up there.
There's some great modelling opportunities with the Finnish.
Yeah.
Some awesome little bases you can make.
Yeah, and all the captured weapons and all the weapon systems they can have. I mean, it'd just be absolutely great to do them. Yeah, I agree. Yeah, I thought
imagine the potential for kit bashing there. Oh,
that's got him hooked in.
Wow, that would just be really, really, really good, really interesting.
Well, Steve's woken
There's
up.
Some really interesting characters as well. So from there that you can model, because there's the sniper. I can't remember his name. I think he comes with the book.
Yeah, I know the one you mean.
I can't remember his nickname is. Yeah, but you could do a really nice base and actually see if you can just model it so you can't actually see him. You could just make him just nice and because he did the whole thing with iron sights as well, didn't he? He didn't.
That was the remarkable thing. Didn't use a scope? Absolutely amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and there's another guy as well called is it Larry Turney? I know that after the Winter War, this guy joined the SS, but then after that he joined the Marine Corps, and he's the only soldier in the Arlington Cemetery to serve in the SS, which is obviously the
only American soldier to be awarded the Iron Cross.
Yeah,
that is. There are some amazing stories like that you just want to read about them because it's just fascinating. I mean, how the hell that Finnish sniper you were talking about was fascinating because he actually survived. I think he only died in the 1970s or something.
He got shot in the face.
Yeah, he did.
Already by an explosive bullet. Yeah. But he survived. He was quite long lived as well. I think it was the early 2000s or late 90s.
Was it 2000s? I thought it was 70s. Yeah, but I think you're right. He did live a long time. Yeah, amazing fellas, amazing. But yeah, I think those Finns will be amazing if he does them. Well, they will do them, I'm sure. But yeah, so. What do you reckon about getting some other people on? Who would your wish list be if you could get anybody on to have a chat to in the hobby? Who would you have?
The Perrys.
Oh.
There's so many questions.
It's a difficult one. I'm not sure.
Well, I was saying before you joined, Steve, but I was saying to Martin, I did send an email to Rich from Two Fat Lardies to see whether he fancied coming on, but he hasn't responded.
Oh, right.
Hasn't responded, but he's probably a bit busy at the moment, so... but I just thought it'd be fascinating to have him. He'd probably take over the thing entirely, though. That's the only thing. He'd give Ken a run for his money, I think. But yeah, that would be quite fun to hear. But I quite like the idea of getting a sculptor on. That's what I'd like to see, because I'd love to know the process that they go through. And I saw... Oh, I bought that... I don't know whether you saw it. The Perrys did this book, sort of commemorative book of however many years they've been in the industry, of all their collections. And it's a really nice sort of tabletop, they used to call coffee table books, of loads of just... It's just figure porn. Basically, it's just beautiful pictures of their figures, beautifully painted in lovely dioramas. But it talks about their process of how they, how they got into modelling, and of course, one of them lost his arm, didn't he? And how he continued to model, and reckons he's actually a better modeller now, modelling with the wrong arm, than he ever was before. And it's absolutely fascinating. I'm really interested about how people go about creating these figures, because the standard is just so amazing, absolutely amazing. But yeah, I don't know who else. I'm gonna have to send anyone in the chat has got any ideas for who we could invite, who's realistic. I mean, I'm going to try and get a few more, not on a regular basis, but I think it's kind of interesting to hear what people have to say. So some rule writers would be interesting. I'd like to get some sculptors on, maybe some other manufacturers. I thought the guys from Gripping Beast, I might, if they're still talking to me after I reviewed one of their boxes, and which wasn't brilliant, but anyway, never mind. So yeah. Leslie says it was great. It stopped Ken for a while. Good to hear from a manufacturer and his take on Wargames hobby. That's a bit cruel. Peter says it was very enjoyable and informative. Miller's Miniatures. Hiya, good evening, mate. How you doing? Nice to see you. GP says metal or plastic, like Dom said in the interview. I used to be plastic for a price, but since starting with Burrows and Badgers and Dead Man's Hand, the wife and I prefer metal for quality and durability. Yeah, I agree. I like metal. Always have done. I think I prefer it. Although I did really like those Victrix figures. I was really impressed with those. They gave you enough variation and enough ability to... Even I was kit bashing a little bit. Not to your degree, Steve. But I was fiddling around and cutting arms off and sticking them on.
I was going to say... I think people know my views on metal miniatures. Saying that, I've actually eaten 5. I couldn't help myself. I've replaced a hand on already.
You don't disappoint, Steve. You don't disappoint.
I just had. I mean, it's not a very big change. Some of them are like they're holding heads, like severed heads, and that's not my thing. I don't like that level of, I don't know, on minute. I think somebody mentioned this the other day. When it comes to or weathering figures, what's your position on blood and gore?
Go on, Martin. I know what you've done with blood and gore, so you can answer that one first.
I do blood and gore on things, but where I think it's realistic, or so I don't want to get hung up on realism, but I don't like going over the top. So I have done. So I've got some casualty models for Wars of the Roses. So I use casualty models in Black Powder and Hail Caesar because I just like using them. And to eventually you run out of sculpts. So I started doing things like removing heads or legs or arms. But I try not to go too over the top. Although I did do one command base for my French Napoleonics, and it's a cuirassier officer and a major, and they're both walking past, and I managed to model them so they were looking down, and there was a crater, and I did a sort of a French guy there who'd lost a leg, and that's genuinely because I'd snipped it off by accident when I was doing it, and it was the only one, so I had him there, and I kind of modelled that, and I used a cocktail stick to sort of model a little bit of bone. And I sort of put that up, and I got a lot of comments. But then I also got a comment saying I don't come on Facebook to feel queasy. So that told me I should probably tone it back. I just do it. It's like this guy here. I've got this war chief guy from. He's holding a heart that's been taken out, but I've just tried to do some blood coming down his arm and a little bit on the knife. I didn't want to spend ages doing a paint job and then chuck fake blood over him. So. I think a little bit here and there can add to a model, but only if it's sort of appropriate. I think if someone's holding a severed head, I think I just do a little. If I don't remove it, I just sort of just paint a little bit of red around the bottom, and that'd be about it. But I don't.
It's what I'm going to be doing on this one here. Even when I did that, I did a medic for Boltax a couple of months back, and I just put a splodge, a tiny splodge of red to stay it shot. But I don't know whether it's a historical or science fiction divide, whether people tend to go a bit more over the top when it comes to sort of science fiction.
Yeah, well, I think if you've got chainswords and things that are sort of blasting, and you've got tentacles coming out of everywhere, and you can be quite liberal with the glossy red on that. Then, in it.
Yeah, I agree with you. I mean, I'm a bit the same, so I don't tend to put much blood and gore on my figures. Occasionally, if you got, I can't remember. One of the orcs I did recently was carrying a severed head, so you can't really not have a bit of blood somewhere. But I've seen people and they literally have it gushing down the pooling and underneath the figure and all this kind of stuff. And I wouldn't go anywhere near that far. It's just no. I can't remember. Somebody I saw did a particularly grisly one of some medieval knight who'd had his head removed, and it was sort of separated by some distance on the base, with a nice gory streak sort of running across it. And I just thought, that's a little gratuitous, that is. But I wouldn't go that far. But I don't really even like putting blood on the weapons particularly. You know what I mean? It's
no.
But I'm with you, Steve. I think if it's fantasy or science fiction, I think you're more inclined to do that kind of stuff a bit.
Yeah. Even when you see in the Australian medic kit with the 4 stretcher bearers.
Mm-hmm.
I absolutely love that kit. I enjoyed painting that so much. But he's got about 4 bullet hole wounds in him. So even that, I just put little tiny bits of red, and I didn't go over the top. I didn't make it like he'd been absolutely massacred. I just think there's striking that happy balance. But yeah, one of these guys is going to be holding a severed head, and I was like, I'm not quite sure how I feel about that.
Well, I mean, I think
I'm about to do a command base as well. So like for wars, so I tend to limit them to my command bases, or if I've run out of models to fit on a base for Napoleonics, I'll chuck a casualty model in there. So I'm currently doing my big command base for Edward IV, and that's going to have a couple of casualties on it. And I'm trying to decide what I'm going to do, but I've also got I didn't know whether to just have arrows sort of just feathering everything across not necessarily just the bodies, but because there'd be so many in the sort of arrow storm before the melee, whether or not to just have them, a few that are sort of done that way. But I do tend to limit it to command bases just to add something into either dead space or to, if you get the pun, but something just to occupy an area.
Yeah, it makes sense.
Plus, I think with command bases or command stands, I think you can put that bit of extra time, bit of extra detail into it. If it's just rank and file, I tend not to.
Yeah.
But it was just something that I saw it I can't remember whether it was on Facebook or it was on a thread. But they were talking about what level people go to when it comes to gore. But no, it's sort of interesting me. I didn't really think about it until that point, but it's not something I've ever really done.
No, I tend to agree. I mean, I'm similar. I do it on just the odd bits here and there, just when it's not too gratuitous, when it sort of seems to be appropriate, I guess. But the rest of the time, I wouldn't bother.
That's the thing, isn't it? It's just not being gratuitous for the sake of it. I think where if it was historical games, you can't get away from the fact that ultimately this is depicting warfare, and and warfare's not nice, but at the same time you don't have to sort of just go nuts and go over the top.
No, I mean,
but like you say, if it's fantasy, then you can.
It sort of goes with the territory there, doesn't it? With fantasy, it's like, well, this is all supposed to be a bit gratuitous and vicious and what have you. But yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, it probably adds to it. It's just with that whole ethos.
Although I did see you talking about pooled blood in your Dead Man's Hand game today.
Oh, yeah, that's because I managed to grease that model of Haley's in one shot with a shotgun, and I was she can hear this. She's sitting just over here. That's because she deserved that. So I got this. Just being cocky, very cocky.
I love it. I love the grief she gives you in that game. It's hilarious. But I'm pleased to hear you're getting her back to playing a proper game and something she can beat you soundly at. Black Powder, instead of this sort of funny stuff.
Yeah, well, yeah, she wants to use the 95th again because I hate the 95th. So in that game, and and she uses them so effectively, it winds me up. So she said she wants to use them again because I think she just likes watching my agonised expression.
I love it. I love it. I love it. No, I'm yeah. What else we got here? So Paul Hicks, that's a good shout, Peter. I like that idea. Paul Hicks as a guest. I'd love to have him on. Because he does some outstanding work. Medieval Warrior, hiya Nick, how you doing, mate? Good to see you. Congrats on your 1,000 subs. Well done. Anybody wants to try out for his free giveaway for 1,000 subs? I think you've got up until Friday, isn't it, Nick? I think to enter his. I think you just have to sub and make a comment on his prize giving one, and he's got some beautifully painted command stands that he's giving away. I shouldn't tell everyone because it lessens my chance of winning them, doesn't it? But never mind. Never mind. And Leslie suggests Martin from Peter Pig may talk about sculpting. That's a good shout because he's been around the business a long time. He might have some interesting perspectives. And I know smaller scale figures is definitely having a real renaissance at the moment again. So that might be a good shout. Good shout. Good suggestions, guys. Any other thoughts? Let me know. I'd love to do it. And Nick Games says, Seventh Son, I really enjoy your battle reports on World of Roses and Black Powder. There you go.
Oh, thank you. There'll be another War of the Roses one very soon. Although I think he's been building up his forces during lockdown, so I'm not entirely sure what I've got coming my way.
It's been an escalation as an arms race.
Yeah. Well, he didn't really need to. He whipped me last time, so he didn't really need to go out and get loads more.
So I'm fascinated because I joke about you playing with your wife Hayley on the channel, and it's been great to see that, and there's been some great games, and I just love the fact she's taking the piss out of you a lot of the time, which makes me laugh no end, and to the point where you have to get her drunk before you can beat her, which is also very amusing.
Yeah.
I mean, how do you get? My wife has, I've been married, be 25 years this year. She's never once played a game with me. I mean, even playing something like Monopoly or something, as we've nearly had divorces over that. So the thought of playing figure games is just not going to happen.
Oh, no, yeah, no.
Is she? I mean, how do you get her into playing it?
What, a war game?
Yeah, proper game.
So, we started playing board. She always liked playing board games, but that started out as quite straightforward ones, like you say, Monopoly. Although we don't play that because that's just too far. That's basically a war game in its own right. There's no need to go that
domestic war game. That one.
Yeah, and then but she enjoys playing board games, but lots of different types of board games. So dungeon crawling games like Descent, Mice and Mystics, some strategy games, sort of horror games. So she enjoys that. And then I eventually convinced her to do some RPGs, which she enjoyed when she realised that we all just sat around the table, got drunk, and just use models to say I'm going to hit this with my axe. That's So I used a lot of my fantasy models and medieval models when I do RPGs. I just use the scenery and just chuck them all down. But I don't do too much of that anymore. But and then, I mean, she watches us play, and she did. And then with lockdown, I sort of was moping about, and I sort of just, I think my sad face and sort of subtle or not so subtle hint said, "Oh, go on then, I'll give you a game." Something small. So I said, "Yep, right, okay." And then I set up a 6x4 Black Powder game, and bought two brigades aside onto there. It's like, this is a small game, and she just gave me this really sort of like unbelieving look, so I had to go leafing through finding photos from a normal size game. So, but I think it was partly that I wanted to show her and shit, like we do, like share quite like a lot. I mean, she has her interest; she's in a band and things, and she's looking at me right now. But she, it was just nice to sort of share something that I enjoy. And then I think the more she's played, she can see I like it, because she did try 40k and Warhammer when I first met her about 14 years ago, and I don't think that was her cup of tea at all. But she likes Black Powder and she likes Dead Man's Hand. So anything like along those kind of lines. I think Saga, I don't think she'll like Saga. I think, like you say, that's a bit of a headache to get your head around straight away. But any kind of sort of quick fire games, because Black Powder ultimately is not that sort of. I don't want to say it's in depth, because I love the system. It's one of my favourite games, but it's not mega detailed for what you need to do.
No, you can pick it up very quickly.
Not that I'm suggesting anything about her.
Not with her sitting so close. No.
No.
No, I'm always impressed with people who play games like that with their other halves, because I say mine doesn't. I noticed Lee in the chat. He plays with his whole family, his wife and his son play in their gaming room and what have you. And I think, oh blimey, how? I mean, on one hand, I think that's fantastic. On the other hand, part of me thinks I'd never escape. That's it's kind of that's one time when I go down the gaming club is when I get away from them all the madness of the house and what have you. But then during lockdown, it'd be fantastic. Sorry, carry on.
I've never even brought it up because I know what the answer would be. It'd only just be 2 words.
And one would be off.
Yeah, probably around the clock ball.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's great.
No, it's just not like that. Just
sorry, carry on.
Oh, I think she was surprised that she enjoyed it as much as she did. She wouldn't have come like Haley if she didn't. She would never do it just to keep me happy. So so she had to enjoy it to come back. But I don't know how much that was down to like winning and my look of utter desolation when the old guard broke in like the 3rd turn.
I have to say that was one of my moments of lockdown videos watching your face as the guard recule. I thought that was just absolutely priceless, which was only matched by the look of sheer delight and triumph on her face. It was just fantastic.
I haven't used them again since. They're in disgrace at the moment. Might have to chop them out again next game.
Absolutely brilliant. Leslie says Haley should come over to the microphone and tell us all about what you like to play against. There you go. Maybe not. Maybe not. Yeah, no. Lee says we are a gaming family. Jamie had an army before he was born, and Mel was curious of my hobby when we first got together. I played ACW games with her, and she was hooked. Fantasy is her preference. Yeah. That's I get it. I mean, good on you. That's all I'll say. Good on you. And I do know quite a few couples who play historic gaming. I have to say, I think it's more common. I think in the fantasy. It sounds really weird, doesn't it? More common people playing fantasy in their own homes, but I'm not sure. Historically, it doesn't seem to quite as. I mean, I think generally there aren't as many women playing historical games as men by a large proportion, and probably more playing fantasy and science fiction, if anything, than men than historical. Yeah.
I think.
Sorry.
Yeah. No. I was just saying. No, I think you're right. But I think as playing war games, I think if we can sort of with historical war games, I mean, I don't know. I mean, I don't think it comes, but I don't know if there's a slight preconception that it's quite fusty and very, pernickety with rules and things like that. But I think by playing those or showing Haley, so it's not. It can be. It's a right laugh, and you can have a drink as you do it, and it becomes even better.
Yeah, exactly. GP says my wife was always into board games, but when we found war games, that piqued her nerdy interest, and she drove straight in. Lord of the Rings nerd, Kings of War, Sixth Sense of Humour, Barrows and Badgers. Okay, fantastic. Huh. And Kaiser says he's literally played his first Black Powder game yesterday. ACW. Very nice. Very nice, mate. I do like a bit of Black Powder, I have to say. It's always a straight, like you say, Martin, it's a straightforward game. But it's quite tough to. There's enough variability and fun in it that it's not.
Yeah.
It's not. Yeah. It gives a good game without being overly complicated to play. Is what I think is what I'm trying to say. Although actually, the one bit I don't play very often is the bit you've been playing, which is Napoleonics. I don't know why. We played American Civil War, American War of Independence, but never really played much Napoleonics in Black Powder. Don't know why.
I've got the main Black Powder rules and the ACW edition, because when we got those 10mm ACW armies, the initial plan was to play Black Powder with them. But it was not long after that I discovered Sharp Practice, and I don't know. I just think I like the way Sharp Practice works. I just think it's a typical Lardy's game, though. It just works. It's really good.
Yeah.
Whether it'll work in 10, I'm not quite sure yet.
Yeah. It should do, shouldn't it? I mean, I suppose the thing is whether it's manageable as a. So how would you do upscale
It'd be
the
a bit more housekeeping, yeah.
I don't know. I mean, we started doing Sharp Practice with a view to get into Black Powder. So we started at the club. We started that way around more than anything else, because you could play Sharp Practice with 50, 60 figures, whereas Black Powder you needed considerably more than that. So if you started building a Sharp Practice force, you could then upscale it to Black Powder. But actually, we discovered that Sharp Practice was an immense amount of fun as well. So so we played both basically at the end of it. But
yeah, I think that's it. I like multiple rule sets. If you've got them, just play as many as you like. Sometimes, as you say, one rule set will be will just hit a certain chord with people, but then if you have a few, I mean, I've got one called Pickett's Charge, which is an ACW one.
Oh yeah, I've seen them, never played them.
Oh yeah,
which I thought looked like really cool. I had this whole idea to do 6mm or 10mm ACW as well. In fact, I've got some little test things here which I haven't yet sort of painted up. But I look again. So I've got Black Powder. I thought maybe I'll pick up a set that's actually specifically written for that period. Maybe I'll just do catch something that isn't. But obviously, the more rule books, then the more choice.
Can never have too many rule books. That's all I can say. It's just never enough time to play the damn things. That's the problem. I was going to say, oh yeah. So I've got to have time for Peter's Little question of the week, because Peter Little, see my little pun there? Peter Little, Peter's Little question of the week. There you go. He always sends a question in, and it's always a juicy one. And he sent another juicy one this week. So he said, I have to read what it says here. Would the participants explain their? This sounds very formal, this, doesn't it? It sounds like question time. Would the participants explain their thoughts on whether a base should reflect the environment those troops or figures fought in, or whether the base should be modelled on a grassy, flower-ridden field all of the time? I feel that's a question for Steve, because his bases are just ridiculous. So,
that is a really good question, actually. Sometimes when I start a project, I think of the base first. So the start of the year, I did those Desert SAS Raiders. Now, I knew before I even bought the box what I wanted the base to look like. I wanted them to be sort of a bit over the top, a bit different, a bit unique, so people will like kind of remember them.
Mm-hmm.
But with bases, I just think it's a good base will set off a very average model.
Yeah.
Which I paint to tabletop standard, but I do spend a little bit longer on my basing when compared to the actual time I put into the figure. But I think that goes a long way, especially when you've got a section of 8, 10, or 12. I think that goes a long way into really setting a miniature off. I know some people just do, just bog standard, generic, bit of static grass, and jobs are good. And there's nothing wrong with that. But for me, in linking an army together or a project together, I think the basing's important. But as you said, over the past 12 months, I think I've just lost all sense of reason when it comes to basing. I just do what I think would look a bit good. I mean, like last week when I made that movement tray for my British Warriors.
Oh yeah, that was cool.
I had no idea. I just thought, I'll try and make a movement tray. It's a bit big. It's a bit out there, but it works and it really binds that unit together. So I'm going to make some more. So yeah, that's my view. Is that I'm willing to put a bit more into basing, and it's. I think that's it. It's a bit more time spent on basic can really set off sort of an average figure, but it also ties an army together. So yeah, great question, Peter. Really enjoyed that one.
What do you reckon, Martin?
What was the main part of the question again? Are the
well? I think he's basically saying a lot of people. So I'm a classic for this. So I'll tend to paint or tend to base figures on a sort of generic sort of base.
Oh right, yeah.
Rather than something specific to now that's not quite true, because if I was doing desert troops, I'd do a sandy base for them. But if I'm doing winter troops, I'll do a wintry type base. But some people I know would just literally do them the same way. Always the same way, no variation in, or very limited variation. So. And other people will go quite as far as our friend Steve over there, who will make works of art, the whole bloody thing.
Yeah, no, all my armies are different. I do consider the environment that they're fighting. So all my Western ones, I've got a cracked, sandy, sort of deserty base, because it wouldn't. I don't think it'd make. I suppose you'd have prairies and things, but then yes, I made a Western board, so I kind of wanted them to fit in with that, because I didn't want having like a nice desert board and then lush green bases sort of just sticking out on it. The woodland Indians I've just done, I've made those quite woody. I've got bits of bark and all sorts, just to stick in with it. Whereas my Napoleonics are probably my, except for the command bases, the actual troops, that's just static grass and then loads and loads of mud, because it was going to be the 100 days.
Yeah.
So I just chucked as much sloppy mud on there as I could. I guess I'm just looking around at them. My Wars of the Roses, I tried to make look like a moorland, like sort of lots of sort of heather and that kind of stuff. So I guess to a degree, it'd be dictated by the theatre of war. Or so if I was going to do a Stalingrad force, I'd do a rubble board. I tried to my British Airborne. I tried to model like they were in Arnhem, but it went really wrong. So I need to rebase those at some point, because it just looks terrible. So I need to get those off. So yeah, I guess back in the day, I would have just dunked it in some flock. I didn't even when I first started, I didn't even put PVA on it. I just painted it and then dipped it in flock and let the paint stick.
Yeah, I used to do that as well.
Yeah. I think we're all guilty of that in the early days. I mean, I think I did just bits of cardboard and I might just paint it, and that would be it. And they would just, it's just hideous. I cringe at it. I mean, I think you're right. I mean, I think, at the end of the day, you've got to pick on a theme, right? You can't just, you can't do individual, because otherwise every time you fight say you've got a German army. 1 minute you might be fighting with it in the Eastern Front, and the next thing you might be fighting in, a mid-war in Italy or something. You don't want to be rebasing them every single time you bring them out the cupboard. I mean, that's just not practical. So you sort of, I always sort of set on a particular, like you say, Martin. So I have something in mind what this unit is for, and then it adapts into other things when I'm using it. But basing, for me, as much as anything else, brings the army together, so they all look part of an army. But when you get them on the table, it is nice when they do match into the tabletop. But it's not always possible. It's just not always possible.
And I think.
Would you ever consider using? I've seen some people do it on the Ball Action forums. Those clear bases, just completely see through.
My really good friend, one of my best mates, he uses clear bases. He started doing it with board games and Kickstarters. You see, 'cause he said you get all these games with all these miniatures, and you're piling them all on, and you can't see the really nice board, which might have icons on it that you need to read. You have to keep on lifting them up. So he started doing it on that, and then for some games he has started putting clear bases on them. I like making bases. Like I enjoy it. I can sometimes look at models. Sometimes I'm like, this looks crap, or I hate it, and then I can do a base, and I'm like, no, I like it now. Or maybe I don't like that. I just like the base, but the model can just that'll do.
Yeah, I mean, I think you're right. I mean, it's.
But when I was
Carry on, Steve.
Oh, I remember when I was making that. I was painting that French artillery piece.
Yeah.
And it got to a point where I was desperate to finish the artillery piece so I could do the base, because I knew what I wanted the base to look like. And I was like, this figure is getting in the way of my base. So I sort of rushed through the figures just so I could make the base. Yeah, that's where I am these days.
You've got a problem, mate. You really have. Yeah. I can't imagine clear, but I'm just getting my head around the idea of a clear base. How do you? Because the problem with so does he chop off the actual pudding bases of the figure and stick them directly onto the clear? Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, I use a razor saw, like a jeweler's saw like that.
Yeah.
And take them off, and then and he uses I can't remember. He's told me so many times. If he's watching this, he'll be mobile. I can't remember the type of glue, but it bonds straight away, but it doesn't turn the base cloudy like super glue will.
Yeah.
But I agree. Like for some things, or if you've bought like a really nice gaming mat, that some people do, and then you can't, if you've got like a huge number of models and you can't see the map through it. I can see the attraction. Definitely for board games, I can see it a lot more.
Yeah, I can definitely see it with board games. I'm not sure I see it with figures. I mean, the only time I did that, I mounted my Black Seas ships on clear plastic bases. But as much as anything else, that's to stop them falling over because they're a bit top heavy. But I did encounter that problem with the, putting the glue on, and I super glued them, and the glue, the base went all frosted. Which isn't a problem for that because they're only going to be on a blue mat of some sort. So, but it's got me thinking about clear bases.
What do you guys think about flying models on like flying stands? Because I personally hate flying stands. I never think they look quite right, or they're never high enough. So for example, I did the Witch King from the Lord of the Rings set, and I removed all of that, and I had to remodel the legs so like it's jumping off of a big ruin, because otherwise it just sits you. I'm just not a fan. I think it's all right in certain futuristic fantasy games where you've got like a floating tank and you can't really see the base because the tank is much bigger. But I'm just, I don't know. I'd rather try and model something we can do, but then obviously with planes it becomes very hard.
That's what I'm currently working on this, which is Messerschmitt. It's just an Airfix one.
Yeah.
But it's going to be air support for my my bolt action Germans. But I've not a. I think what I'm going to use is guitar string. Use top E, and hopefully that should be sturdy enough. That it's not, you can't really see it, but I'll be able to stick it into some corkboard and then build up a bit of a forest around it. So I think that's the way I'm going to go and just use guitar string.
That's a whole set of videos right there.
Oh my goodness! I love that. It's going to be really involved, because the problem with, I mean, I have to say, in all fairness, I haven't done that many flying things in games. I mean, I'm just looking up on the cabinet there. I've got a few planes up there, but I rarely ever use them, and they've still got the clear plastic stands that they come in the kits generally with. And I get what you mean. I mean, they're never really. Yeah, because really you want them higher, don't you? And you want them to.
Yeah, or you want it angled. If it's a Stuka, you want it coming down.
Yeah.
You need to angle. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know really. I mean, but then again, the immediately I think with a clumsy git like I am, I'd knock the table and the thing would fall over and squash half of me SS troops or something. You know, just like, I'm not sure that's really a good idea. I don't know.
Years ago, I was at an X-wing tournament, and this guy, he'd mounted all his ships on car aerials to go up and down different heights.
Oh, very neat. Very neat. I've seen that with some of those First World War airplanes. Yeah, I've seen people do that with First World War airplanes.
Yeah.
Very clever. But that's a hell of a job, isn't it? Oh my god.
It'd be a bit of a faff just for a bit of basing.
Yeah. Oh my goodness, Graham is in the house. Hi, Graham. Graham thrashed me the other day at Saga. I'm playing on Discord, so you can get right out, mate. Go on, off you go. From my club. Evening, mate. Leslie says, Leslie's having a funny. So if you're basing figures for Mexico, what theme coloured would you use? And Peter suggests dried mud on an empty tequila bottle. Very good suggestion. I like that.
What the hell? Dried blood on mud on a tequila bottle. Sounds like some nights out. I used to have when I was younger.
Sounds like the average night on a student pub, doesn't it? Bloody hell. And Leslie suggests make wire spiders for your aircraft models. Years ago, we used to use metal hangers to hold the planes up. And it just looked bloody awful, but it did the job. But I don't. I'm not sure that necessarily works. But hey ho, yeah, I don't know really. I'm not hung up about fly things, and I guess because it's never really been a big issue, because I don't really have. So the only other time I've had flying things, apart from bolt action games, and how many times do you really use an airstrike in a bolt action game? Not many times I can think of. The only time I ever used it otherwise was in Saga Age of Magic games, and in that you just literally, it flies from here to there, and you plonk it down. There's no...
And then lands.
Yeah, and so it never seemed to be that much of an issue for me. But, yeah, I don't know, really. Yeah, I don't know what I'd do there. It must be some really clever things nowadays for doing planes or doing hanging things where they look realistic but don't get in the way of the figures. Because that's always the problem, isn't it? They can get in the way of everything, which you don't want. But you want them to. But I think Steve's idea of hiding them in
the plane yeah, it's out of scale anyway. I think it's 1/72 airfix. So it'd be like that, like on Father Ted. These ones are small, those ones are far away. That's what I'm going for with my plane.
I like it.
It's just literally, it's just a token to represent it anyway. So this was the first airfix model I've made since the first Gulf War.
Oh, wow. I like it. I did pick up a few the other week. Was it Lidl were doing them really cheap, and I picked up a couple, and I thought, oh, they'd be really good for bolt action. And I forgot how fiddly making those things are. And then I looked at it after I'd done it. I thought,
Oh,
well,
God.
it's like, oh, okay, you can just sit in the cabinet for a while, which is what it's doing. Because I referred to my earlier answer, how many times do you use the plane in bolt action? Not very often.
I think I've only ever used them in games. So I'm trying to remember the other week I mentioned about when I had about 2,500 points on the table and it felt unclean. I think I used air support in that game, but it's not something I'd ordinarily take. Given how crap my dice rolling is, and how unpredictable airstrikes are anyway, it's just a complete point sink for me.
I think it's just an easy way of losing however many points it is, 150 points or whatever it is, and then whatever it is that it manages to squash of your own side, which would inevitably happen for me.
Then, no, they're not cheap by any stretch of the imagination, and you're not guaranteed it's going to splat something. So no, not something I'd normally go.
Wargamers Anonymous is in the house. Hiya, mate. Just managing to catch the last 30 minutes. Well, welcome. Bloody hell, is that 30 minutes only to go? Crikey. It's gone quickly, hasn't it? Wow.
Wargamers Anonymous. Wargamers Anonymous. One of your videos appeared in my recommendations last night. I'm going to watch it later. It's about infantry. I think it's your Romans. It looks really good. So bear in mind, I'll be watching that later. So yeah, that's just reminded me.
He's by the Discord. I'm in Wargamers Anonymous on Discord because they're going to have a little bit of there's a painting challenge this month for a command base, which is why part of the reason I'm going to do my Edward, the fourth one. So he's put a video up for that as well to see if we can get people to do that. I think everyone in the Discord voted, and even though we did the Beckus command thing, was it like 2 or 3 months ago? Overall, I think it was command base, but then it might be like an elite or cavalry thing next month or something like that. So just another one to jump on, which is cool. Always a reason to make another one.
I did see that, and it sort of didn't register. I must do it. Yeah. Okay. Good shout out. While I'm on the shout out, Graham, have a look at Graham's channel. He doesn't advertise it because he's shy and doesn't want people in the real world to know that he's a sad wargamer like the rest of us. But he doesn't. But he does some great stuff. And he's showing all the games that he's been playing of Saga. He's been playing a couple of games every week actually on Saga. So get over to his channel. You have to put the channel in the chat, Graham, because I can't remember the name of it because I can never remember it. And Alpha7563 says, "Hi chaps, have you ever tried piano wire?" Is that to grot people, or is just for the modelling of planes? Yeah, piano wire. Isn't that a bit saggy? Doesn't it? Is it? Am I thinking the same stuff? Don't know. How would that stand up?
Guitar wire. Oh, sorry, guitar strings for aerials on radio sets. That was Little League. That was like the smallest one you can get. No, I've never used. I don't think I've even seen piano wire. Yes, like I said, it's been used in a garrote somewhere in a 60s spy film.
Well, that's the only time I can think of it is 60s spy movies where they come around and garrote somebody. But is it firm? I don't know. Maybe it is. Maybe that's the secret. There you go. Maybe there's your secret.
Are we getting confused with cheese wire?
Could be. I don't know. We all get very confused. Whatever's happening. It is Graham's Wargames Vault. There you go, guys. Go and check that out because he's if you like Saga, he plays at least one Saga game every week on that channel, and he describes how the game works and how he's thrashing everybody, including me. And I think we got a game on Thursday, haven't we, Graham? I think I'm playing Saxons, which will be interesting. Wargames Anonymous has said, preemptive thanks for checking out the Ancient Brits, and yes, come and get involved in the monthly challenge. Yeah. And Alpha says, yes, it's no, not cheesy grommet. Okay. I don't know. Cheese grommet. Ah, well. Brilliant. Miller said... Oh, no, that's... Sorry, different reference. Okay. I love it. So we're almost out of time. I can't believe how quickly tonight's gone. How much easier it goes without the distraction of base talks and talking about Ken and stuff and dwarves. And we haven't mentioned dwarves once yet. Oops, I just did. Talking about basing...
And yeah, there's been no...
Sorry, carry on.
I was going to say, there's been no vehicle basing chat for a while, so...
Let's talk about
I
basing.
thought that might come out when the basic stuff, when the basic question came. Like, I wondered if that might come back then.
Ah, Jesus. I love it. He got so annoyed with that. It's made me laugh. And do you know what? Genuinely, on the video I did after that, I did one of my sort of figure update, and I had that Jeep on it, or the swim Panzer, and I genuinely didn't think about that. I just did it because it was quite a fragile model, and I put it on a base because and he got really. He sent me these notes. I said, "You bastard! You put it on a base just to wind me up, and you didn't even reference it." And I didn't have the heart to say it's because I didn't even think about it. I just did it because it needed it. I love him to bits. Jesus, hilarious. So I was thinking about continuing to talk about basing and things like that, because that got me thinking. That was a really good question from Peter. Incidentally, Peter every week sends me, the last 3 weeks has sent me absolutely fantastic questions. So keep them up, Peter, because they're really good. And it made me think about other things around what you make the game table look like. So you mentioned it earlier, Martin, about mats, and some people have really nice mats, and some people just use plain cloths. And what's your feeling about mats versus cloths, or just does it really matter?
Oh, I think whatever you're happy with, like whatever you're happy. I mean, I like having quite a big table with lots of things. I mean, I use a mixture. I've got a big 6x4 static grass mouse matty kind of mat that I got through Fire and Sword Kickstarter, but I use it for everything because the static grass doesn't fall out of it. I don't know how they've done it, but it doesn't fall out, which so it's brilliant.
It's magic.
And then I'll use teddy bear fur fields and then like rice padding and things I've built up just over to sort of embellish it. Although I do have a 7 foot by 5 foot piece of teddy bear fur away at the minute that I need to sort of trim and get down to size, so I've just got one large one for the bigger games that we have. But there are some really nice mats out there, and I think they look brilliant, especially for city fighting. I think they look really good where you've got all the road, where you've got like layouts, especially if you're playing like a set battle. I know some people would like make a Catch-a-Bra or a Waterloo specific maps, and you've got all those roads already on there. I think they can look really good.
What about you, Steve? Do you use mats?
Yeah, I've got mats. I've got they're both the same pattern, sort of generic earth. One's 6x4, one's 4x4.
Yeah.
They're really nice material. I mean, they weren't what you call cheap. I mean, they're a bit of an outlay, but I think I wanted that because it was at the time I was making all that scenery. I thought, well, if I'm putting all the time into making this nice scenery, I want a nice surface for it to go on.
Yeah.
So I just found they're very, very generic, but they work to sort of earthy, greeny, brown pattern. Yeah, not too bad.
Yeah, I mean that's. I think you hit the nail on the head. At the end of the day, we spend a lot of time making the figures look nice and the terrain look nice and all that sort of thing. So you need to have some sort of battlefield that looks good. But whether that's a mat or a, like you say, teddy bear fur or whatever it is, doesn't really matter terribly as long as it looks good, and it's what you got, isn't it? It's whatever you got. When
I got into X-Wing, when I started playing X-Wing, I actually I made my own gaming service to start off with out of black cardboard and just stuck it onto an old coffee table and used a toothbrush to put some specks of white on to represent stars.
Yeah.
We as we started playing more and more and getting better and better, and then getting into the tournament scene, I went out and bought a proper 3x3 space mat.
Yeah.
I've still got that. That's a really good one. I do like that.
I think that the problem is with a lot of those mats is that if they're really generic, then you're probably as well just using a piece of cloth and having nice bits of terrain to put on top. But if they're too specific, like those roads, how many times do you get to use them?
Yeah. No, that's the thing, isn't it?
I mean, I've got a couple, and I tend to buy them when they're doing some deal. So I can't remember. I think is it Geek that do them, and they did a Black Friday sale where they were like 25% off, and it made them, quite a reasonable price. So I picked up one there. In fact, I picked up two. I picked up one for Black Seas because I wanted a decent surface blue one, just plain blue. And I thought, well, I'm not going to spend however much it was, full price, just for a blue cloth. I mean, come on. Although it does have sort of waves and whatnot on it, and it does look really cool, and it does set the thing off, and is a lot better than just the plain blue piece of cloth that I was using previously, or the paper one that they give you with you. So, but some of them are such a price. I do wonder whether it really is worthwhile, because if you get decent terrain and you get decent figures on nice bases, the mat almost becomes inconsequential, doesn't it? Almost.
Especially if half of it's covered up by houses or whatever, and then
But maybe your mate's idea about having clear plastic bases is the way to go, because then you can admire your
Yeah, well, yeah. If you're going to invest that much in a mat, then yeah. I mean, I've got one mat, like a pre-printed one, which is a futuristic one for Infinity, and that's got lots and lots of nice little details on it. Which, but considering it's a game where you need loads and loads of scenery, tends to get covered up. So it's I didn't really think that one through when I got it. But then, like for games,
sorry,
it's for I tend to use mats on bigger games. If it's a small game or a skirmish game like Dead Man's Hand, I'd rather just make a custom board for it, and just have like something that like the Old West theme board, or I've started a sci-fi one which is sort of a generic sci-fi Red Earth Mars type kind of thing that I can use. I'd rather do that. Bushido, I did like a sort of a Japanese board with rice paddies and things in it, but that's like, if they're 2x2s or maybe even a 3x3, I'd rather just do a custom one and just make one.
Yeah, it makes sense. Makes perfect sense. I'm getting paint everywhere. Yeah. Nick Game says Hangout. This Hangout you guys run is just great. I listen to it while I sit here and paint. Yeah, I think a lot of people do that, mate. I appreciate it. I think Martin and I were talking about this before we started, and I was trying to work out how many shows we've now done. It's been quite a few, considering Ken and I decided to start this just because we thought people might be bored on being locked in all the time, and it's been quite fun. I really enjoyed doing it, so I appreciate it. So many people come along and listen out, and it's great to have Martin and Steve and others join. It's been really good, so I appreciate it. Alpha says I've got a Geek Villain mat coming soon. They are what I'm looking for, and I'll be selling them in my web shop. Oh, you got a web shop, mate? Oh, you should put the link up. Good to know, especially if there's a discount for all viewers of this channel. Peter Little says terrain is more important for 6
Dom, are you channeling your?
Sorry, carry on.
I was gonna say, are you channeling your inner Ken there?
I did feel a little bit of the Dwarf Master coming out there. It just sort of seeped out a little bit, didn't it? It was like, he's on the scrounge. He's on the scrounge for something. Yeah, no, I am but an amateur compared to Ken. I was really pleased one day. I was talking to him on Facebook Messenger or something, and I said to him, "Oh, I sent Offensive Miniatures a note about if they ever want some reviews to do." And he said, "Oh, I've already done that. I've got about 6 sitting here." And it's like, oh, every time, come on, ay ay ay, Jesus. He says prices are already discounted. Good. We'll stick the link up, mate, and we can all see what it is. Because I always like to use third-party suppliers because I think I'd rather pay. I always use Goblin Games because they give you like 20% off the main prices. Which I think, well, why don't I go to Warlords when I can get 20% off by going Goblin?
Yeah.
And
I get all my stuff from Goblin, and they're only down the road as well, so it's not too easier.
They've just opened their warehouse again, haven't they? For pickups and stuff, so you don't even have to pay postage. Fantastic.
Well, I got these ancient British. I got them from Goblin. Now their Goblin Gaming, their turnaround time is phenomenal. Literally 2 hours. Yeah. Passed to the Royal Mail, and that's where things went a bit tits up. I'll be completely honest. Because they seem to be flummoxed. But I live in an apartment block, and so rather than use the intercom to speak to me, it's easier to write a note saying I wasn't in or the parcel's too big.
Right.
So I actually get my figures until Tuesday.
Oh, what a pain in the arse. Yeah, I have to say
it never come between a man and his new figures.
There is it is one of those delights, isn't it, where you're waiting for some figures to arrive and they're on the way, and and they just every time the postman comes, like bloody when you're a little boy with your Christmas card or your birthday cards and that sort of thing, and it's like you're waiting for them to arrive and they just don't, and it's like, oh bugger, it's not delivered. And the same with the Lardy rules, the infamy rules. I knew they'd been dispatched, and people were saying on the Facebook page, "I got mine," and the postman came, and it's like, I'm so disappointed because they didn't come on the first day, and it's like, oh no. Big kids, all of us. Ah, dear.
Right, so I'm currently painting this severed head.
Have you had the cheese wire out again, mate?
No, it looks like something off Scooby Doo.
I'm getting paint everywhere. I'm trying to do these bases, and it's gone. Look at my hands; they're absolutely covered in paint. Jesus. So have you gone for the full gore look, or you gone full gore? Have you?
No, it's just I went for a more pallid looking skin, and I think rather than pallid, what I've got is rotten.
Maybe he took it a few battles ago. He just takes it with him.
This is good luck
I imagine this thing might smell.
It's his mascot.
Thing might smell.
Oh dear, brilliant.
Yeah, that looks. It doesn't look too bad actually. No, I'm going to stick with that. I was tempted to repaint it, but no.
But if he's swinging it around from his chariot boss or whatever it is, and it's going to not look particularly good, is it? I mean, if it was chopped off 3 days ago, it's not going to look great. So I think you're probably okay. Oh bloody hell! So
I guarantee there's not many YouTube channels out there tonight discussing painting severed heads.
Yeah.
We'll probably get some kind of strike from YouTube for doing something dodgy. Jesus. It's okay, we're just doing toys, alright? We're playing toy soldiers, don't worry. Please, gods of YouTube. Alpha says he does 6 ranges of paints, Kalinsky sable brushes, Geek Gaming ready-made basing products. Okay. Oh, cool. Well, put the link up so people can see it, and we'll go along. It's always nice to have a look at stuff. And Graham says, "Do I like the new Lardy rules?" They look really promising, mate. They look really promising. Really, really itching to have a go with them. Proof of the pudding will be in the playing, obviously. But if I can find, if Alec manages to finish off his Romans without getting them all cloudy, because he managed to spray paint them and turn them all frosted because he didn't warm the can up properly.
No.
So he's had to repaint them all again. So if he gets them finished and my Germans are almost done, maybe we can have a game next week if the weather holds up, which would be fantastic. Fantastic. Duncan says he must have missed something. Where does the severed head fit on the mosquito Messerschmitt? Yeah.
Mechanical accident.
Well, do you remember that Indiana Jones thing where the guy with the mechanic with the big wrench gets hit by the propeller? That's kind of how it happens.
Yeah.
Ah, dear. No, fantastic. I don't know, severed heads. I don't think I've got anything. The Gallic figures don't. I was going to do some severed heads. I've got some spare Roman sprues kicking around that I'm never going to make up, and I was tempted to have a couple of heads so in Infamy you have deployment and ambush points that you need to do, and I thought I could do some Roman heads in them. Then I thought, actually, maybe that's a bit too gratuitous. Although I did see somebody done a fantastic drop-off points. I keep saying drop-off points, ambush points. And it was just, he'd obviously just gone through and picked up all the spare heads he had from his Gallic figures, I think they were. And he just put lichen bushes and stuck the heads in the middle of them and said, these are the ambush points. So I just thought that was absolutely classic. That's all you need, right? Just these heads peeking out of a bush.
Wicked.
That's a fantastic idea. So I hate to think what you're going to do with these, Steve, the ambush points. They're just waiting for.
I've actually got an idea. Last year, I think it was either last year or the year before. Every time you, for a certain period, when you order anything from Warlord Games, you get a free miniature, and it's an ancient British woman holding a baby, and it looks really good.
Okay.
So I'm thinking of using that as an ambush point.
Yeah, nice idea. The Germans have 6 of them.
But I forgot. I forgot I owned that figure. It's in I found it the other day in one of my bits boxes. I don't know what it's doing there.
Yeah, I don't know. The Germans got to have 6 of them, so I think 2 of them were really easy because I had 8 woodland archers, and the unit only has 6. So one for each of the ambush points with a bit of foliage and what have you, and also the German leader pack that you get from Warlords for SBQR had a couple of dogs in it, so I put a dog with each of the archers, so there'll be 2 of the ambush points, if you see what I mean. And then they Rich suggested using some of the spare standards that you get, standard bearers, because you don't need too many for the units, as another ambush point. So a couple have got those. I can't remember else. I also got some of the Wailing Women that they have in the Foundry range, because you can have. They're a rallying point in the German army. You can have. So I quite love it. It's a classic Lardy rule. So if you can pay extra points to get this support base of women that you place behind your warriors, and then if they fall back, they sort of rally them, basically scold them to say, you're not men, go back and fight, and they go back and fight again. So you need a base of women sort of shouting at men. So I got one of those. So that's going to be but also there's far too many, because the bases are like 6 mil or something you need to put them on, or 16 mil. And you only need like 4 or 5 women on that base, so there was an extra few, so they're going to go on another ambush point. So, but it's been quite fun to sort of plan them out. It's trying to work out what to put on these things, because 6 is a lot. But,
that's a fair bit, to be honest.
Yeah, I don't know how often I'll need all 6, but the Germans can have 6. So, but yeah, I think that's one of the fun things about the rules. They seem to allow you to. There's a lot of focus on. I've seen this in a few games actually, but there's sort of quite a lot of focus on the pre-game game. So
Yeah.
it's how you set up the map according, or the table according to where the fight's taking place. So it's, you know, if it's in Germany, I'll have a lot of woods and a lot of marshes. If it's Britain, it has different terrain. If it's Gaul, it has different. If it's civilized lands, it has more farmland type things and buildings. So you build that up, but then also then the positioning of these ambush points is really critical. And depending on the composition of your force, will determine how many ambush points you have or how many you can stop your opponent having, which is kind of fun. And also, as you get close to the ambush points, you can shut them down, which again is sort of the scouting element of a game where you push forward a unit to get towards where there could be an enemy unit hiding, and by getting close, you shut that down.
It's like in Chain of Command. Yes, like
very
Chain
similar.
of Command, where you shut down a jump-off point to stop them from being able to deploy. That's one thing I love about Chain of Command. In fact, we even talked about incorporating the patrol phase into games of bolt action. So rather than just starting off, have different deployments. I think that would work quite well.
Yeah, I think that would work really well.
That reminds me, actually, Steve, I was watching one of your videos today, because you played through the firefight rules, the small skirmish ones, because we've been looking at that, thought they'd actually be a lot. And again, I was thinking about making a small 2x2, much more sort of condensed, terrain board for World War II. But how did you find those? Did you enjoy them as a variant?
Yeah, I mean, it was a solo game, but it was more a case of scale. I was going for more narrative. What I would say is that limit LMGs. They're absolutely lethal in firefight. I think when I do the next game, it's going to be rifles and SMGs only, because in the game that I played earlier this year, every casualty was pretty much caused by an LMG on the French side. But the actual rules themselves, it works really well, and if you want to have one of those commando comic style games, it's ideal for that. If you aim for the narrative, aim for the story rather than aiming to stop the opponent, I think the rules would work really well for that.
There's a couple of games I've been looking at, and because there was that, and then there's another one I've seen called Operation Squad, which I thought might look quite good as well, which only was sort of limited to sort of 5 to 10 figures aside. Sort of I like the idea of sort of, commando raid to take out the 88 before the main attack, or, rescue this spy, which obviously you can do in bolt action, but I like the, like you say, a more narrative thing. Or you could play with you could do a firefight game as a pre-game before your battles. If you can take out the 88, they don't get their preparatory bombardment before the next game.
I think it'd be ideal for that. It's just a nice little rule. I mean, it's largely bolt action with bits and pieces taken out. But it works really well for that scale. As soon as it came out last year, I was like, this has got potential. Because I like smaller scale games. But when we were locked down and I couldn't throw any dice around, I thought, I've got to find some way of getting a couple of solo games in. So I just thought with Firefight, it was because I could run the game the way I wanted it, the narrative to be, rather than just go out and try and annihilate the opponent, which would be me, which would be odd at the same time. But that's just the way that I played it, and it worked quite well.
Have you tried 148? I think it's called 148 or something, which is
148.
Yeah.
I volunteered a couple of scenarios for that last year, and I've not heard anything from them. So.
No.
Okay, the rules are out.
It looks quite good. I mean, you can download the basic rules for free from their website. You get the basic cards and templates from there as well. but having seen it played, I mean, you can. I've only ever seen it played in both in 28 mil, which is supposed to be like say 148 scale.
Yeah.
Rules would work for any scale, I would guess.
Well, that's
It
what
looks
I
like
thought.
quite a nifty little game actually.
It does, and it's grown quite a following. I saw, I can't remember who the YouTuber was, but he was big into it, and he was running a world championships, and those guys. I don't know whether they watch it. The guys from Norway who do a whole load of bolt action stuff.
The table, yeah, that's.
Oh yeah.
And they've got heavily into
it was
148
because. Was in contact with the development team. He was part of the play testing.
Right.
So I was back and forth. It's fine, sending him a couple of scenarios that I'd written, but I don't really hear anything more for it. There wasn't a lot of work put into it, just a couple of hours. But I like writing, so that's what why I did it. I just thought it'd be quite interesting to put a couple of scenarios together.
I did buy the rule set some time ago, and I just never got around to playing it because it's just another rule set to get with. But the games on the YouTube look really fun, which is why I got them. But something for retirement when I ever get there. But my goodness me, fellas, it's gone 10 o'clock, which means we've exceeded our allotted time.
Crikey!
I know, extraordinary. Wow. I can't believe that's gone really quickly tonight. Well, I appreciate all the interaction. Thank you very much indeed. It's great that we can cope without the Mad Dwarf. We can cope. Even he could be off wherever he is in Margate or wherever he is. I don't know wherever he is. But I appreciate everyone watching. Thanks very much everybody for joining. Hopefully we should be back next week, same time, same place. Hopefully. We're probably going to have to put up with Ken, though, unfortunately. So, thanks for watching. See you again soon. Cheers, guys. Bye-bye.
Cheers, guys.
Cheers. Bye.
Oh, dear. There we go.